We are a family. I fight for them. They fight for me. Hello, everyone. Do you know what that's from? That's what this little nugget episode is all about. That's right, folks. Crept from the 80s is bringing you Bionic Six. You're going, Crispin, the Sievage. What, pray tell, is the Bionic Six? The Bionic Six was a short-lived cartoon show and toy line. And when I do these little fun-size Crept from the 80s episodes, they are going to be pretty much about everything that I loved growing up. Even the very obscure things. And I gotta tell you, Bionic Six I loved. Bionic Six was a toy line that started in 1986 from LJN. And then in 87 to 89, I believe, the cartoon lasted. So it was only 2 seasons, but like most cartoons from back then, 2 seasons is, 60 plus episodes. And NBC, I believe, was behind it for a while, but it primarily aired on the USA Network in the 80s. It was a syndicated show. But, so the toys came first, and the toys, I first saw the toys in this little shop called Newberry's, where I grew up in Wellsville, New York. And they kind of blew me away because what was cool about the toys was they were an amalgamation of die-cast and plastic. And these were figures. So when you picked the card off the shelf, it was heavy. It was like, what? Because they wanted to, play up these guys are bionic. So basically what had happened, they got these powers, machine/bio stuff happened to these guys, and they became bionic, and they formed like this surrogate family. There was 6 of them, and they would fight crime and villains and whatnot. But the toy line there was only 13 figures, and I had all of them. But I never had, and there's vehicles, and there's a play set. There's like a base that you could get, but that stuff was never in Wellsville. It was never at like KB where I went to. I only saw commercials for it, so I never had the actual vehicles or the play set. But I had all of the figures, and it was the Bionic Six and the bad guys, and the bad guys were cool and weird and very... They were biomech as well. They had bits and pieces that were metal and all that stuff. But again, they were very heavy. One of the heaviest figures in the line his name was Fluffy, I believe, and he was kind of like a big robotic ape or something like that. And he was dope looking, big, and he was just a heavy toy. You could probably clock somebody's brains out with this toy if you were a psycho kid. But I just loved them. I loved them, and man, when that cartoon came out, this is one of those cartoons, folks. In the 80s, you had some kick-ass rockin' opening intros, and Bionic Six has one of those intros. It's also the animation house that did the Japanese anime for Cobra and a couple other very popular anime shows. So the animation level was insane for a kid's cartoon, right? It was very sophisticated and really dope looking, and not just because sometimes they spend all that money on the opening intros and you're like, whoa, is this what we're gonna get? Whoa! And then the cartoon plays out and the animation is a little shoddy, and that's to be expected because they were pumping those shows out like some were every single day. there was an episode every day for some of those syndicated 80s shows. So sometimes the voices weren't matching the characters, and there were skips and weird animation issues that were happening, and they just weren't that great. But Bionic 6 was one of those shows where almost consistently it was like beautiful. But yeah, it's great. So when I talk about Bionic 6, barely anybody knows what I'm talking about. There's been a few people on the channel in the comments that have like, you know, spoke up, which is great. Because to me, all that stuff was just so prevalent and in your face back then. So I just figured everybody knows what I'm talking about when I mention things like Misfits of Science and Bionic Six and things of that nature. It's just like, oh, it was all over. The merchandising wasn't like crazy. I mean, I know there was like some sticker books and maybe some like party things like party cups and napkins and plates and stuff like that. But it wasn't really like a huge thing. At one point, there was going to be a comic book series, and that failed. But yeah, I mean, it was 2 years, and the whole line was just gone. It was just gone. But I've always remembered it. And I don't know, probably 15 years ago, I found a bootleg set of the entire series on DVD at one of the conventions. But they still weren't that great. And that's the problem. Like, most of the stuff you're going to get is people just taping it on VHS and then putting it onto DVD. It can be hit or miss. But I'm still looking for like a decent copy again so that I can have all of them. But that's just one of those properties that, I mean, it's probably going to stay in the 80s. It never caught on. It didn't like resurface. It doesn't have like a remake or a reboot or anything like that. It's a time capsule. The Bionic Six, it's in that time. But I love it. And I'm trying to recollect the toys. I want all the figures again. And I was going to attempt to do them carded, because I did have one carded Bionic Six figure that was gifted to me. He was the mechanic character. And I ended up selling it because I was like, you know what? I'm just never going to be able to get all of these figures carded because they're so expensive on the collector's market now. But what I can do, and what I think I could probably pull off one of these days, is if I find a Bionic 6 lot for the loose figures and just get all 13 loose figures. A holy grail from that set would be getting the command center for them. That's going to be so expensive, but it would be awesome just to have, because I never had it. Much like the Sectors line, I never had the Hive, which was their play set, but that Hive was awesome. I don't know, maybe one day I'll get it. But I'm primarily only recollecting stuff that I had growing up. But there's some exceptions, like those things. Those things where like I absolutely wanted them and was never able to get them for some reason or another. And those things I will go after. But yeah, if anyone's got a good line, somebody knows somebody in the know about some Bionic Six, let me know, because I want to grab those figures for show. But that's it, guys. That's it for this little fun-sized nugget of 80s nostalgia. The Bionic Six. Do yourself a favor. Go check out at least the intro. The intro is so badass. So sweet. Great animation. The music is fantastic. Bionic Six. I'm telling you. It's going to be stuck in your head all day. It's great. And if you're like me, who love Bionic Six, let me know. Let's talk about Bionic Six. Let's do it. In the comments. Come on. All right. And before I go, this episode was brought to you by I'll say Zach, but I would prefer if it was brought to you by Vachon. And actually, the amount of times that I've talked about this company and talked about these treats over the years, many, many, many years, you know, they should be kicking some flavor over my way. Anyway, so Zach went on a trip during his, he's on a mission to somehow mix chicken grease and lasers. And in that mission, on the way to that mission, he picked up some Vachon cakes for sievage. You've heard me talk about the Passion Flaky over and over and over again. This was a childhood favorite treat of mine growing up in the late 80s. And then in 1990, poof, it was gone. And they were gone from the Wellsvillian shelves. They weren't called Passion Flakies at the time, but it was the Passion Flaky. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Maybe one day I'll do a whole video about the Passion Flaky, and I'll send it to Vachon and let them know the passion for the Passion Flaky. But he picked up some Vachon for me, and they are delicious, folks. These are Canadian treats. Look at this. This is basically a rectangular Passion Flaky, but with frosting on top. Then we got the caramel. Look at that. Look at that oozing moist caramel. Twixt those moist, fluffy cheeks right there of cake and chocolate. These are delicious as well. And guys, look out now, because he's coming for you. The Jean-Louis! Now, you could be looking at this and be going, that just looks like a moon pie. But it's not a moon pie. Oh, that just looks like one of those Hostess cakes. Guess what? It isn't. Because this is the Jean-Louis. This is so soft. Oh, so the outside, you're going to get that, you'll think it's like a hard little crustiness for a hard little, and then it's like you're biting into a tit. It's so soft, so delicious, so creamy. I love it. I love it so much. I want to thank Zach. I want to thank Vachon. And that's great. So, all right. Until next time, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 700. Once we get to that 700, folks, I am going to pick a special subscriber, somebody in the comments, somebody who's a fan, and you are going to get this Masters of the Universe retro filmation Super 7 line Merman sent to you for our 700 huzzah. And we're going to do another live show and all that good stuff. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. And we will see you next time. Crept from the 80s. Bye!